The NFL divisional round is here, and we are down to the Elite Eight. Today, we're here to break down all of these games, give our best bets, power rankings, and game picks, of course. But let's see who moves on. Let's talk about it. Let's kick off here with the first matchup with the Houston Texans going to Kansas City and Arrowhead to take on the two-time back-to-back reigning Super Bowl NFL champions, Amir. This is a matchup that happened just a few weeks ago. Kansas City won this matchup 27-10 in that game. Of course, unfortunately, we saw Tank Dell go down with a season-ending injury, but in that game as well, CJ Stroud, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. It just wasn't a great day for the Houston offense. They were playing from behind for a lot of it. But the question for me, Amir, in this game, of course, 8.5-point spread, I think is honestly way too big. Kansas City, I understand that they are used to being the 1 seed. They're used to having a couple weeks off here at the tail end of the regular season and into the playoff run, but they've had 23 days off for their starter unit right on both sides of the field. How rusty are they going to be? I think the key to this game, Amir, is the first quarter. Who comes out
Yeah.
hot? Who comes out clicking on all cylinders? And how, close is KC going to make this thing when it comes down to the end of the game? But I think it all starts in the first quarter. And honestly, Amir, I think if KC comes out on all cylinders and they come out clicking, I think this game's going to be a blowout. But again, 23 days off, they're going to be rusty. Your thoughts on this game, Amir?
So for Kansas City, I think having those days off are honestly great because I think going into the playoffs, Kansas City probably has the mindset of like, all right, it's going to be like last year. We're going to rely on our defense. And so, just like you just mentioned, like the Texans, that first quarter is everything. Like if they come off slow, like they've been doing the whole entire year and how they did last week, this game is going to get ugly. And so for Kansas City, honestly, I think for them too, they're kind of treating this game as kind of just like a practice round for next week. Because next week, that's when they really, really are really going to get challenged. And so I think Casey wins this game comfortably.
And my question for you, Amir, is uh, if do you think it gets in the back of the KC players' minds? Now I know they're experienced, they've been there, they've done that, but there is history on the horizon, right? This is a team that is on the way to do something that no team has ever done. How much do you think that plays in the back of their minds? If we make a mistake, does that weigh more heavily on some of these players because they're going to be, again, there's history on the line. They don't want to be that player to mess it up and mess this journey up, if that makes sense. Amir, how much would that weigh on your mind as a player where, again, you have a chance to do something no team's ever done?
So, it's definitely tough to really keep winning, to kind of keep going, especially when the whole entire world wants it to fail. But
Right.
so one thing I kind of give Casey props for is the fact that they literally won like 12 straight games, 13 straight games, or whatever it was, lost to Buffalo to kind of just like ruin that win streak and the possibility of being the first undefeated team. And they literally just bounced right back and still started dominating. And
Yeah.
so I think for this Kansas City team, I don't really think that's in their mind as much as it honestly were for other teams,
Yeah.
surprisingly.
I mean, again, 8-0 at home this season, and they have a better offense, better defense as far as points per and points allowed. And this is a CJ Stroud led team that this year he has not looked like the same quarterback on the road, despite last week's win. Throughout the regular season, he hasn't looked the same on the road, then again at home. So a lot goes in the favor of Kansas City. Now, as we've seen all year, they're going to make this interesting. It's going to come down to the end of the game. But on paper, they should win comfortably. Now, kicking off here with the 1 seed in the NFC, the Detroit Lions. Of course, last time we saw them, big time Week 18 wins. So they had a rest week, but not as big of a rest period as the Kansas City Chiefs. This now, I wanted to have Washington win in Wildcard weekend for this reason. Now, I picked against them, but I wanted them to win for this reason because if you want to knock off the Detroit Lions, we know their defense is not the greatest. So you need the offense to match them because, like we've talked about, nobody's stopping this offense, especially now that David Montgomery is back into the mix with this Detroit Lions offense, of course, led by Ben Johnson, which is a very attractive head coaching candidate in about a month's time. But I think the question for this game, Amir, again, Washington has the offense to match Detroit's as far as putting the points up on the board. Which defense is going to step up? Your thoughts?
Um, Me personally, it's crazy because before the week, the spread was at minus 8.5, and
Yes.
honestly, that would have been my best bet. But then when I went back and I looked at Washington, like they're somehow still staying in games, within one score. But I think this week, I think the first half might be a bit of a shootout. Washington might, kind of start responding, but it's like it's gonna take that one mistake where the doors just blow open. And I think this Russian attack it's really just going to be too much for Washington's, defense, man. Way too much. Because, honestly, up front, they've been struggling the whole entire year. I think Aaron Gunn's going to send a bunch of pressure on Jaden Daniels, blitz him a bunch. And I think, this week, him kind of, using kind of like the Sam Darnold recipe of sending, all these different, gap pressures and stuff like that is going to
Yes.
work this week. Next
Yeah,
week,
again, a rookie
maybe different,
quarterback.
but
Now,
this
he
week,
might be the best
it'll work.
rookie quarterback that we've seen since maybe Justin Herbert or even Andrew Luck back in 2012. But you, at the end of the day, you are a rookie, right? You can't really prepare. I guess you can't replace experience. Let me just say that, right? You can't make up for it. So this is a guy that, yes, he's been very talented. He's had a great season, but this is another game where we're going to keep doubting him until he continues to prove us wrong. And that's, again, how you become great as an NFL player or in any sport for that matter. But I do want to mention that 9.5 points is incredibly too much. This is a Washington team, Amir, that has not lost by more than 7 points since week one, which was Jaden Daniels' debut. So this Washington team, I think, is going to keep it close. They're a veteran-led group on the defensive end. Great defensive line, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne. And then you, of course, have the 500-year veteran in Bobby Wagner behind those guys. The question is the secondary, right? Marshawn Lattimore, we thought would be a boost to the secondary, but as we saw against Mike Evans,
That
you
was
could pick
bad.
it apart pretty easily. So hopefully, if he's guarding Amon Ra, I'm just going to bet the over on every single Amon Ra prop in the history that these books want to put out. But let's get into the Sunday slate of games. We have the LA Rams, who are all of a sudden now a sleeping giant here in the NFC. As we wanted to buy into this team coming into the playoff run, but we held back because the last year, well, they burned us pretty bad. But the Rams coming to this one, 6.5 point underdogs. And again, the numbers on this slide right here are going to tell you that Philly should win this game by a landslide. And that might be the case. But let me get into it here. Philadelphia won this matchup back earlier in the season, 37-20. And in that game, Saquon, 30 total touches, over 300 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Insane game. A.J. Brown had a crazy game in that one, 6 receptions, over 110 yards, and a touchdown as well. So Philly is going to get their ball to their playmakers. Now, on the Rams side of things, Amir, Stafford went for 250. Kyron had 70 yards and a touchdown. Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, they combined for 17 receptions, 180 yards, and a touchdown. I bring all of that up to say that you can bet your bottom dollar that the stars are going to shine on this Sunday morning game. So, Amir, your thoughts on this matchup? The Rams, I mean, we doubted them last week. Can they prove us wrong yet again?
Man, I'm kind of torn because it's like, you know, I wouldn't be high on the Rams and Sean McVay and Stafford every playoff run, but it's like, man, like if the Commanders would have lost,
Yes.
and then let's say if the Rams this week would have played Detroit, I probably feel a lot more confident of kind of taking the Rams spread and kind of saying like they'll keep this game close. But man, this Philly team is just too legit, man. And like watching that game earlier in the year, going back and watching it, like man, Cooper DeJean had Cooper Kupp in prison, had him in hell, jamming him off the line and stuff like that. And it's really crazy though because it's like some of those yards that he got and Puka got were in just like garbage time where they were just kind of just airing the ball down the field. And really looking at last week, the Rams really blitzed Sam Darnold and put a lot of pressure on him. But like this week, I mean, it really won't work. I mean, this Philly offensive line can dominate any D line,
Yes.
any run defense. We saw them dominate Pittsburgh, dominate Baltimore, and so I mean, the biggest thing really is for this Rams offense to really just get chunk yardage, get those first downs in like 2 or 3 plays each, and really just chew the clock because I mean, this Philly offense can't be stopped or the defense.
I mean, I'm going to continue to say this as I do every single time we talk about the Rams. I think they have the second best coach in football. If I was starting a franchise today, Sean McVay would be the guy to lead the charge. But just some extra stats that I want to throw out there for you guys at home. These are meaningless. And just to clarify, I think we're both rolling with the Eagles on this one. They just have too much. And I think the
Yeah.
defense is what's going to put them over the top because Philly, I think, I think they can come back from, a couple of drives where they're not scoring. They can come back from a mistake. I don't think the Rams have too many chances of making those mistakes.
You don't.
and bouncing back the same way that Philly does, because again, Philly is more talented top to bottom. But some meaningless stats I want to throw out there. Stafford is the only quarterback in the NFC. McVay is also the only coach in the NFC, still remaining that has a Super Bowl victory. Both of those guys, of course, have the most wins at their respective positions compared to every team that's left in the NFC. Now, Philly is 6-1, really 6-2 this year against NFC playoff teams. I wanted to have an asterisk there because Jalen Hurts went out late in the season against the Commanders, and it was the backups, where they were backup quarterback against the Commanders. So 6-1 for the Eagles against playoff teams this season. The Rams are 3-3. So I just want to throw those stats out there. Of course, you see the rest of the stats on your screen. But Amir, any last thoughts on this game? It should be a fun one to open up Sunday.
Yeah, this game is going to be fun. I think it'll be somewhat low scoring, slow paced. But man, like this is a terrible matchup for the Rams.
Yeah. Again, they're going to be fun, and Sean McVay is going to keep them in it. But outside of that, I'm not sure how far they're going to get. But the matchup that everybody is waiting for, Amir, it is the battle of the MVPs. And let's talk about it here. Now, again, whether if you think Josh Allen should win it or Lamar, which is, I think that'd be my vote as Lamar, no matter who you think's going to win it, I think one of these quarterbacks is going to come into this game pissed off with a chip on their shoulder, thinking that they should have won the award. Now, Buffalo's home in this game. Again, battle of the MVPs. Now, they played earlier this year in September, late September, for if that matters. Baltimore won the game 35-10 in just utterly dominant fashion. And I will say that that game was in Baltimore. This game is in Buffalo, so a bit of a difference there. But in that matchup, Amir, you could just see that Buffalo, they could not match up with this Baltimore offense. Derrick Henry had 27 total touches, 215 total yards, and 2 touchdowns, one being through the air. Absolutely insane game from the King. Now, Justice Hill, Amir, actually led the team in receiving in that game with 6 receptions, over 80 yards, and a touchdown. So the running backs dominated the Buffalo Bills, and that could be sneaky player prop, which we'll talk about later. Take Justice Hill's over on receptions or receiving yards. He could have a day. Again, the quarterbacks, as far as total yardage, Amir, we know they're both some of the best dual threat quarterbacks we've ever seen. They both had about 200 yards total in that game. But the only difference is that Lamar had 3 touchdowns. Josh Allen didn't get a single one. It's going to be snowy conditions here in Buffalo, as we can expect in January. And Derrick Henry plus snow spells disaster, Amir, for this Buffalo's defense. I'm just going to get it out there. I think Josh Allen's going to win the MVP, even though my vote would be Lamar. I think Lamar comes in pissed off, and I think that they come out here with something to prove. I think they win, like, let's say a 17-13 game on the road, really ugly, but, Justin Tucker finds a way to get it done at the end. Your thoughts?
Win or lose this week, Josh Allen is going to get my MVP vote just for the simple fact that, I've never seen, I say since Cam Newton, I haven't seen a quarterback, really just like carry and just field raising offense to the level that he did.
You didn't see Joe Burrow this season?
Josh Allen literally has freaking 9 to 5.
One of them has a way better record. I'll say that.
Right. For me, this is a game that's a toss up. It's a 50-50. So bettors, if you're betting on this game, just bet the under on points. Don't bet any money lines or spreads, because this game is going to come down to like the last drive, last final play. But I'm going to lean towards Buffalo. I think in a game like this, where, in that first matchup, they didn't have Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, or Taron Johnson. They're 3 best defensive players. I think that this game, they could somewhat be able to stop Derrick Henry. Not stop, but somewhat but somewhat slow him down. Because like that's really the focal point of this offense. And I'm gonna be honest, in this game, if I'm Buffalo's defense, I fear Derrick Henry way more than Lamar. The Ravens are 2-5 this year when Derrick Henry runs for less than 90 yards. And so if I'm Buffalo, I'm focusing on that, especially if Zay Flowers isn't going to play. They can really match up well on the back end against Baltimore. So, come out in a heavier package, slow them down, and figure it out.
Now, I will say this again. I want to throw out some more meaningless stats here for you guys because it doesn't necessarily affect this matchup here. But again, Josh Allen's 6 career playoff wins, Lamar at 3. Both of them, however, don't have the greatest playoff records in general. Both of them are about 500. Now, head coaching advantage goes to the Baltimore Ravens. Of course, more experienced coach than John Harbaugh. He has 7 more playoff wins than Sean McDermott, and he also has a Super Bowl trophy to go along with it. Now, Baltimore's the most battle-tested team this year, Amir, out of anybody throughout the entire NFL. They were 8-3. They had the most total games against playoff teams and also the best record against playoff teams at an 8-3 rate. Now, the Buffalo Bills were 3-3. So, again, they lost some games they probably shouldn't have early in the year. But at the end of the day, they're 9-0 at home. They have a top two offense. Amir, they are unbeatable at home, it's seemingly this year, and it's going to be the last game in Buffalo. Again, they're going to come out motivated to try and just close off this season at the bare minimum, undefeated at home. I think that would be a crazy feat. I will say that, unless Houston finds a way to win. But, Amir, your official pick is the Buffalo Bills, just to make sure?
Yep, Buffalo
Okay.
Bills.
If we make any changes, as always, we'll let you know down in the comments. Now, last week was the worst. I went back to look because I've went through two NFL playoff stretches already here on the channel. This was the worst week that I've ever had as far as predictions, and that was this past wild card weekend. Usually, again, for reference, Amir, last year I only had two total games that I mispicked in the playoffs last year. The year before, I only had three total. So I have to go perfect from here on out in order to kind of keep that pace going. But on the year, we're both about 70%. Amir, you're 6 wins away from 200. I am 2 wins away from 200. I hope that you can get there, but you gotta be pretty dang good to get there. Again, so we can both cross the 200 mark. Detroit and Kansas City should get me there this week. But let's get into it. These are official picks. Again, if we make any changes, as I just mentioned, we'll let you know down in the comments section. Now, let's get into it here. Now, every single week, all season, if you've been new to this channel, we rank every single team in the NFL, but we only give you guys the top 10 every single week. Amir and I, of course, there's only 8 teams left. We're going to rank all of these 8 teams based on how likely we think they are, based on their path, their roster, and their matchup this weekend. How likely are they to win the NFL Super Bowl, the Lombardi Trophy? Let's get into it here. Now, Amir, me and you had very similar lists. So the only difference were the 7 and 8 spot. I had the Commanders at 7. You had the Texans at 7. So at the end of the day, I think we both know that these teams have had tremendous seasons. They have great young quarterbacks, some good pieces around them, but I think they're just going to be outmatched this weekend, and this is where their season comes to an end. Amir, your thoughts on the Texans, the Commanders, and their great seasons?
You know, the Texans season, it's really crazy. They still won a division and still made the playoffs despite them completely underperforming.
Yeah.
And and, and, and
Losing
you
great
know,
pieces along the way, too.
right. And so for this Texans team, I mean, going into next year, I mean, really, I mean, they have the tools, they have the pieces. Like they got to either figure some stuff out schematically, coaching wise, or on the higher up side. As if like, you know, for the Commanders, on the other hand, they really, just have a bright future. Like they're just completely just like, playing above their expectations, over their levels on both sides of the ball, honestly. And for the Commanders, it's going to end this week. But I would say they have a better shot at winning this week.
Yeah, again, they have the offense to keep up with Detroit. It'll be interesting. It'll just matters on which defense in that game can get the one or the two key stops to get their offense a chance to win it all. At number 6, we both have the LA Rams. I think we both will acknowledge the fact that there is a slim chance that they can go on the road with their great offense and head coach and Sean McVay to pull off an upset here in Philadelphia. But we are both leaning, towards the Philadelphia Eagles because they just have too much. They're too complete of a roster, and unless they have a complete fumble, we think that Philly's going to roll in that one. So the Rams, not only would they have to go on the road to Philly, they would then probably have to go on the road to Detroit just to make it to the Super Bowl. So they're going to be super beat up after this week, let alone after this week and next week to get to the Super Bowl. Amir, your thoughts on the Rams?
The Rams are always going to be a great and sleeper team. And I'm going to be completely honest, man. They've done a great job since 2021 of really splurging,
Yes.
doing a roster, winning it all. And then the next year, sort of, rebuilding, pretty much tearing it down. And then just completely just like revamping this defense with its young pieces. And it's crazy because the first half of the year, this defense were playing, terrible on all three levels. But they've completely just turned it up, playing great, up front especially. But it's like, I mean, it's a bad matchup this week, and it's
Now, I do want to throw out there the only team that has a Super Bowl winning coach and quarterback in the NFC, and the only one for that matter, still remaining on that side of the bracket. And number 5, we have the Baltimore Ravens. Amir, I have them winning against the Buffalo Bills, so I kept them at 5. But for the Baltimore Ravens, they have a great matchup. They won against the Bills again back in September. Can they do it again? It's hard to beat a team twice. Your thoughts on the Ravens?
Yeah, I mean the Ravens are great, and I mean sure, I mean this roster is Super Bowl ready, and normally I don't like to hold guys to crazy standards, but it's like honestly, like if Lamar doesn't, make the Super Bowl after getting his third MVP, I'm gonna be completely honest, like, um, you know, unless he can, completely just like plays lights out and his defense fails him, like if he doesn't go all the way, in my opinion, I think this year's a failure. This
Yeah,
roster is
again,
Super
I
Bowl
mean,
ready.
when you have all the pieces like that, maybe not all the pieces, but you have a lot of pieces, you want to eventually see your team get over the hump. The problem is number 15 is sitting there in Arrowhead. I do want to throw out there they have the second best head coach as far as playoff winning or playoff wins and as far as Super Bowls there in John Harbaugh. So they have the veteranship to get
I
this
would
team
say
to where they
too. I
need to
would say
go.
too. If I'm not mistaken, I think John Harbaugh has the most road playoff wins in history.
I didn't know that. But
I think he
again,
does.
I mean,
Yeah.
it makes sense for
Yeah.
being such a tough physical team. And again, he had a lot of great players when he first started. To be fair, guys like Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and Terrell Suggs, all those great players. Haloti Nada, just the name to throw out there. The Buffalo Bills at number 4. This is a team that at home, they're 9-0 at home this season. They did everything they could. They pulled out all the tricks last week to beat the Denver Broncos, and they did it pretty handily. What did they score? 35 unanswered points. This
Something
is a
crazy like
team
that.
that it all relies on their defense. If they can get enough help for Josh Allen, this is a team that honestly most people can see winning it all, right? And in pretty much in dominant fashion. They already beat the Chiefs. They have, again, Josh Allen, it's hard to beat a team twice. They know what they need to do now to beat the Baltimore Ravens, but can they execute? And can they get enough help around or Josh Allen, excuse me, number 17? Amir, your thoughts on the Bills before we get into the top 3?
Man, focus on Derrick Henry this week, man. Like if I'm the Buffalo defense and Lamar beats me with his arm, I'm gonna live with it, But it's like you can't have Derrick Henry starting a game off running for like a 70-yard touchdown, like seriously. And it's crazy too because it's like when I went back and I watched that game, you could just like see the presence of Bernard and Milano and Tyron Johnson being gone. Like, the defenses look bad up front. And it's just crazy too because it's like the problem isn't only Derrick Henry. Like the problem is when they come out in those two tight end sets and they got Ricard Lee blocking as well. Because it's like when those guys get to that second level against this Buffalo defense that it sits a nickel the whole entire time, it's a bad matchup. And so if I'm Buffalo, you have your guys back, you got Milano back. He can spy Lamar, make it somewhat difficult on him, and so really just focus on Derrick Henry.
Yeah, again, battle of the MVPs this weekend. That is going to be a very exciting matchup. And number 3 might be the most complete team in the NFL, Amir, top to bottom. It is the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a team that has been there before. They've made it to the dance before. Of course, they didn't come out on top, but this is a team that has so much talent that it's kind of hard on paper to see any team beating them, whether if they're at home or on the road. But we believe they get past the Rams this weekend, and then they're going to go to Detroit. They have the offense to match with Detroit. And if they can beat Detroit, imagine the high of beating the Rams, Detroit, and then going to the Super Bowl to face a team that you lost to a couple years ago in the Kansas City Chiefs. They have the motivation, they have the talent, and again, the difference this year, Amir, they have Saquon Barkley. Your thoughts on the Eagles?
Yeah, this Eagles team has had absolutely no flaws. The only concern that I have is like, when it comes down to it, like if the run game isn't working, can Jalen Hurts just flip that switch and air the ball out? That's the only concern that I have. But it's like, I mean, they got the receivers for it, they got the O line for it, and it's like, it don't matter what team they play, this offensive line is coming. And I keep on bringing it up. It's like the Rams have dominated up front these past weeks. Well, this week you can't do that. So it's like Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka, keep that Eagles offense off the field.
Yeah. The craziest thing to me, Amir, about this Philadelphia Eagles team is that they have a Heisman Trophy winner and they're not using them like any other team would in Devontae Smith. And number 2 is the Detroit Lions. Of course, they're coming off of a bye week, and before that, they had a huge statement win in Week 18 over the Vikings. Amir, they are getting healthy, right? They got Anzalone back, right? 2 weeks ago. They're getting David Montgomery back after his MCL injury. Amir, this is a team that is healthy. They're unstoppable at home, and they're going to be home. If they're going to make it to the Super Bowl, they're going to be home the next 2 games. I think they get past the Washington Commanders, and I think it's going to be a big battle against the Eagles, which I honestly think I would lean towards the Lions in that one, or at least I would want them to win at least. But your thoughts on the Lions? You have them at number 2 as well.
Yeah, this Lions team is honestly crazy, and defensively, I'm gonna be honest, man. I don't even care about the defense. This offense is one of the greatest offenses I've ever seen, as far as schematically, as far as dominance, as far as the pace they play at, and this offense is built to beat anybody in honestly any type of way. And so for Detroit, the biggest thing is like don't collapse like last year.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, shoot, just start praying that Philly loses. That's really it.
Yeah, I think for Detroit, my biggest thing, take your points. I understand you're aggressive and you
Yeah,
want to carry that
the
mindset
big
into
thing.
every game. But last year, you had a golden ticket to the Super Bowl, and then you kind of threw it away, just going strictly based on the analytics. You gave away a lot of opportunities. Don't let that same mistake haunt you again this year. Detroit, get it done. Go to your first ever Super Bowl in franchise history. And at number one, is there any shock? Number 15. They're on a road that no team has ever been on, or at least this far into the season. They are trying to make history. 3 straight Super Bowls. And if Patrick Mahomes, Amir, wants any debate or any argument in that GOAT debate, he needs to get this done. He needs to pull off a feat that nobody, let alone Tom Brady, has ever done. So, Amir, they are complete top to bottom. They're getting all their firepower back. And their defense, I think, is honestly at this point underrated because of how much love their
Yeah.
offense has been getting the last couple of weeks as far as the big time media. Amir, your thoughts on the Chiefs? They're at home. They're going to be home next week if they win. Can they get it done for a third straight time?
The Chiefs are great, and all people that are really hating on this team for using black magic, squeaking by all these wins, during the regular season. I'm gonna be honest, like they're still finding ways to get it done, man. We saw last year they finished the regular season. Um, I think they were 10-7 or 11 and
Yeah.
6, and they still went all the way. I mean, they completely ran through Miami, Buffalo, and Baltimore than the 49ers. And so this year, I mean, they have an even better team and an even better path as far as in the AFC. And so it's like, I mean, really, I mean, I'll probably keep on picking the Chiefs
Yeah.
until Mahomes shows me otherwise.
Yeah, at this point, we've seen it too many times where if you pick against them, you're just trying to disappoint yourself. It's kind of the same logic I had with Tom Brady. You just can't pick against them after a certain point in time. But last thing I want to throw out there: 26 playoff wins, by far and away the most coach playoff wins. At least it's the coaches left in the league today, and he has more than double than the next guy, which is John Harbaugh. So 26 playoff wins and 3 Super Bowls for Andy Reid. 15 playoff wins, which is, again, 9 more than the next closest quarterback, and 3 Super Bowls for Patrick Mahomes as well. He's going for his 4th. It's just crazy to say how time is flying. But let's get into our final segment here on today's show, the best bets section. Every single week, we give you our favorite player prop, spread pick, and over-under on that given week. So let's get into it here. I have a line from a receiver, Amir, and we're both high in the Chiefs this week, so it kind of spoils it. But this receiver has covered this line in the last 5 games. And in 5 of the last 7, he's had at least 4 receptions. Amir, I'm going to go with the X-Man, a guy that I've had a lot on this show this year, Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy, over 4.5 receptions. We know that maybe they kind of want to give DeAndre Hopkins in the end zone, saying that it's his former team. But as far as getting the receptions, they can use this guy in a multitude of ways, and you just can't match up against speed all the time. I think Xavier Worthy is going to have a huge day here, maybe 5 or 6 receptions for this Kansas City offense. Amir, what is your player prop? It looks like you're staying in Arrowhead.
Yep. So my player prop is Isaiah Pacheco over 41.5 rushing yards. And it's crazy because this lineup again in the league was at 36.5. And so obviously, we should honestly expect a semi-big game for Pacheco. And I mean, he's covered this line in 6 out of 7 playoff games in his career. And also, too, his last 3 games, he fell short. And that's only because the past 2 games, he had less than 10 carries. So, obviously, they were kind of preserving him a little bit. And the week before that was a blowout. And so I think in this game, he's going to get anywhere between like 20 to 25 carries. Case is going to kind of cruise through this game, control his clock, and honestly, he should easily cover.
Yeah, again, let's not forget, last year in their playoff run, he was their unsung hero on the
He
offensive
was.
side of the ball next to Travis Kelce. Our favorite spread pick on the week, and this is, to me, a team that I don't think wins this weekend, but I don't think it's going to be this blowout that Vegas is projecting. This is a team that has only lost by 7 or more points once this season. And when was that? Well, that was week 1 in this rookie quarterback's debut, which is, again, against the team that they just beat last week. It's the Washington Commanders. I think plus 9.5 is far too many points over on DraftKings. They're on the road against Detroit. They have the offense to match Detroit. It's whatever defense gets a stop. But as far as the bet here, Washington, they're going to put up the points, and I could see a 27-21 kind of a game where Detroit comes out on top. Amir, where are you going with your spread pick on the week?
So I'm going with an alternate spread. The Philadelphia Eagles versus the Rams. I think this game, you know, I would say it's a lock, but I was kind of leaning towards Detroit at -8.5, but they bumped
Wow.
it up even higher. And so, me personally, 9.5 is a giant spread for a team like the Commanders, who have been, playing, lights out. But I think this game, Philly wins, controls the clock. I think it'll be somewhat low scoring, kind of like how both games were last week. It might be it might be maybe like a 20 to like 14 game,
Yeah.
something like that. But I think Philly controls this game here.
Yeah, again, I think they were playing around with Green Bay last week, but
They
they got
were.
it done when it mattered most. And Saquon, well, he sold my touchdown parlay. I had an 8 leg in, and he was one of the only two that didn't hit. Regardless, my favorite over-under on the week, I'm going with an under. And Amir, you're going to follow. We're going to go with
Yeah.
an under 55.5 points in this
This is a crazy
Washington and
line.
Detroit matchup on Sunday, or excuse me, Saturday. Look, Amir, I just think, again, I know Ford Field is notorious for having a lot of points scored on that field, whether
This
at the
this this is
collegiate level or
a
at the
crazy
NFL.
line.
But 55.5, Amir,
That
that's
is insane.
absolutely insane. And I know the defenses are great, but I can just see this kind of being like that Vikings-Lions game from a few weeks ago
Yeah,
where
right.
it's going to be like 37 to 45 points scored in this game. It's just not at the 56 points for me. Your thoughts, Amir?
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Like 56 points is absolutely crazy. And,
Yes.
and like if they were playing I say playing maybe like the Rams or maybe even
The
like
Eagles?
the Bucks, right? And then maybe I'll lean in that direction. But like this Washington offense is good, but like it's not super fast paced. High powered just like all these other teams. And so I think this is going to be like more of a I wouldn't say slower pace, but it's like 56 points is absolutely crazy.
At the NFL level, it is.
That's
And
insane.
again, I do want to say that to help, if you want to go over this line, two uber aggressive head coaches, two guys that do not believe on punting or kicking field goals on fourth down. So that's only going to help your chances to get more scoring opportunities as far as getting in the painted area. But under for the both of us, it's playoff football. Montgomery's back. I think it's going to be lower scoring than people think. But that is it. Episode 244, NFL Divisional Round predictions. Amir, I mean, we're down to 8 teams. It's crazy how time flies. And after this week, we're going to have conference title weekend. Amir, your thoughts to close out the show here?
No thoughts, man. The season flew by. Make sure you call off work and watch some football this weekend.
Right. Or at least, again, within reason. But we'll see you guys next week for a conference title weekend. Until then, go enjoy some football. And let's go, David Montgomery.